19. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Exodus 19, starting verse 1, and we're going to read all the way through Exodus chapter 20, verse 23. That'll be followed by Numbers chapter 28, verses 26 to 31. And we'll go over this again. Don't feel like you have to memorize all this right now. Ezekiel chapter 1, verses 1 through 28, and chapter 3, verse 12. Acts chapter 2, verses 1 through 47. First Yachanan, chapter 4, verses 1 through 6. First John. So, So we'll begin reading in Exodus 19, verse 1, and we'll read all the way through chapter 20, verse 23. So what we need is men to volunteer to stand up and read. And so the way that you volunteer is you come up and sit in the seats. And so just in the seat that's closest to the microphone is the next guy that's going to read. And then as the first guy gets done, then you move on down the line so you get a heads up, follow along in your Bible. So we all take a turn reading. We'll say maybe 15 verses, 20 verses, so that everyone gets a chance to participate.
Exodus 19.
Yeah, all the way through 20, chapter 23, Numbers 28.
But you only want me to read how many verses?
I think 15 or 20.
Like the line.
We hear them.
Okay. So, Connor, report for duty.
All right. Exodus 19, starting at 1. All right.
Yes.
In the 3rd month, from the exodus of the children of Israel from the land of Egypt, on this day, they arrived at the wilderness of Sinai. They journeyed from Rephidim and arrived at the wilderness of Sinai and encamped in the wilderness. And Israel encamped there, opposite the mountain. Moses ascended to Elohim, and Yahweh called to him from the mountain, saying, "So shall you say to the house of Jacob and relate to the children of Israel, you have seen," turn the page, "what I did to Egypt, and that I have borne you on wings of eagles and brought you to me. And now, if you hearken well to me and observe my covenant, you shall be to me the most beloved treasure of all people." That word there is segula. It's pretty cool. "For mine is the entire world. You shall be to me a kingdom of ministers and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the children of Israel." Moses came and summoned the elders of the people and put before them all these words that Yahweh had commanded him. The entire people responded together and said, "Everything that Yahweh has spoken, we shall do." Moses brought back the words of the people to Yahweh. Yahweh said to Moses, "Behold, I come to you in the thickness of the cloud, so that the people will hear as I speak to you, and they will also believe in you forever." Moses related the words of the people to Yahweh. Yahweh said to Moses, "Go to the people and sanctify them today and tomorrow, and they shall wash their clothing. Let them be prepared for the 3rd day. For on the 3rd day, Yahweh shall descend in the sight of the entire people on Mount Sinai. He shall set boundaries for the people round about, saying, 'Beware of ascending the mountain or touching its edge. Whoever touches the mountain shall surely die. A hand shall not touch it, for he shall surely be stoned or thrown down. Whether animal or person, he shall not live. Upon an extended blast of the shofar, they may ascend the mountain.' Moses descended from the mountain to the people. He sanctified the people, and they washed their clothing. He said to the people, "Be prepared after a 3-day period. Do not draw near a woman." On the third day, when it was morning, there was thunder and lightning and heavy cloud on the mountain. And the sound of the shofar was very powerful, and the entire people that was in the camp shuddered. Moses brought the people forth from the camp toward Elohim, and they stood at the bottom of the mountain. All of Mount Sinai was smoking because Yahweh had descended upon it in the fire. Its smoke ascended like the smoke of the furnace, and the entire mountain shuddered exceedingly. The sound of the shofar grew continually, much stronger. Moses would speak, and Elohim would respond to him with a voice. Yahweh descended upon Mount Sinai to the top of the mountain. Yahweh summoned Moses to the top of the mountain, and Moses ascended. Yahweh said to Moses, "Descend, warn the people, lest they break through to Yahweh to see, and a multitude of them will fall. Even the Kohanim who approach Yahweh should be prepared, lest Yahweh burst forth against them." Moses said to Yahweh, "The people cannot ascend Mount Sinai, for you have warned us, saying, 'Bound the mountain and sanctify it.'" Yahweh said to him, "Go, descend. Then you shall ascend, and Aaron with you, but the Kohanim and the people, they shall not break through to ascend to Yahweh, lest he burst forth against them." Moses descended to the people and said it to them. I'll stop right there.
Thank you. Chapter 20, verse 1.
Yahweh spoke all these statements, saying, "I am Yahweh, your Elohim, who have taken you out of the land of Egypt from the house of slavery. You shall not recognize the Elohim of others in my presence. You shall not make yourself a carved image or any likeness of that which is in the heavens above, or on the earth below, or in the waters beneath the earth. You shall not prostrate yourself to them, nor worship them. For I am Yahweh, your Elohim, a jealous El, who visits the sins of the fathers upon the children, to the third and fourth generations, for my enemies, but who shows kindness for thousands of generations to those who love me and observe my commandments. You shall not take the name of Yahweh, your Elohim, in vain, for Yahweh will not absolve anyone who takes his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to sanctify it. 6 days you shall work and accomplish all your work, but the seventh day is a Shabbat, Sabbath, to Yahweh, your Elohim. You shall not do any work, you, your son, your daughter, your slave, your maidservant, your animal, and your convert within your gates. For in 6 days Yahweh made the heavens and the earth and the sea and all that is in them. He rested on the seventh day. Therefore Yahweh blessed the Sabbath day and set it apart. Honor your father and your mother, so that your days will be lengthened upon the land that Yahweh your Elohim gives you. You shall not kill, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness against your fellow. You shall not covet your fellow's house, you shall not covet your fellow's wife, his maidservant, his manservant, his maidservant, his ox, his donkey, nor anything that belongs to your fellow. The entire people saw the thunder and the flames, the sound of the shofar and the smoking mountain. The people saw and trembled and stood afar. They said to Moshe, "You speak to us, and we shall hear. Yet let Yahweh not speak to us, lest we die." Moshe said to the people, "Do not fear, for in order to evaluate you, Yahweh has come, so that the awe of him shall be upon your faces, so that you shall not sin." The people stood from afar, and Moshe approached the thick cloud where Elohim was. Yahweh said to Moshe, "So shall you say to the children of Israel, you have seen that I have spoken to you from the heaven. You shall not make images, what is with me, gods of silver or gods of gold, you shall not make for yourselves. An altar of earth shall you make for me, And you shall slaughter near it burnt offerings and your peace offering, your flock and your herd. Whenever I permit my name to be mentioned, I shall come to you and bless you. And when you make for me an altar of stones, do not build them of hewn, for you will have raised your sword over it and desecrated it. You shall not ascend my altar on steps, so that your nakedness will not be uncovered upon it.
Thank you. The next one is found in Numbers. Go ahead. Come on up. Numbers chapter 28. We'll read Numbers 28, verses 26 through 31, please. Numbers 28, verses 26 through 31. After that, we'll read from Ezekiel chapter 1.
Numbers 28, verses 26 through 31. Also, in the day of the first fruits, when you bring a new meat offering unto Yahuwah, after your weeks, you shall have an holy convocation. You shall do no servile work. But you shall offer the burnt offering for a sweet savor unto Yahuwah. 2 young bullocks, 1 ram, 7 lambs of the first year, and their meat offering of flour mingled with oil, 3/10 deals unto 1 bullock, 2/10 deals unto 1 ram, a several 10th deal unto 1 lamb, throughout the 7 lambs, and 1 kid of the goats, to make an atonement for you. You shall offer them beside the continual burnt offering and his meat offering. They shall be unto you without blemish, and their drink offerings.
Thank you.
What's this?
Next is Ezekiel chapter 1, verses 1 through 28. The reading after this will be from chapter 3, verse 12, followed by Acts chapter 2. Ezekiel chapter 1, verses 1 through 28, please.
And it came to be in the 13th year, in the 4th month, on the 5th of the month, as I was among the exiles by the river Kebar. The heavens were opened, and I saw visions of Elohim. On the 5th of the month, in the 5th year of sovereign Jehoiakin's exile, the word of Yahweh came expressly to Yehezekiel the priest, the son of Buzi, in the land of the Chaldeans by the river Kebar. And the hand of Yahweh came upon him there. And I looked, and I saw a whirlwind coming out of the north, a great cloud with fire flashing itself. And brightness was all around it, and out of its midst, like glowing metal, out of the midst of the fire. And out of the midst of it came what looked like 4 living creatures, and this was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man, and each one had 4 faces, and each one had 4 wings. And their feet were straight feet, and the soles of their feet were like the sole of a calf's foot, and they sparkled like the appearance of a polished bronze. And under their wings, on their 4 sides, were the hands of a man, and each of the four had faces and wings. Their wings touched one another. They did not turn when they went, but each one went straight forward. And the likeness of their faces, the face of a man. And each of the four had the face of a lion on the right side, and each of the four had the face of an ox on the left side. And each of the four had the face of an eagle. Such were their faces. Their wings were spread upward. Two of each touched one another, and two covered their bodies. And each one went straight forward, going wherever the Spirit was to go, and they did not turn when they went. And the likeness of the living creatures, their appearance was like burning coals of fire, and like the appearance of torches moving back and forth among the living creatures. And the fire was bright, and out of the fire went lightning. And the living creatures ran back and forth like the appearance of a flash of lightning. And I looked at the living creatures and saw a wheel on the earth beside each living creature with its four faces. The appearance of the wheels and their works was like the appearance of beryl, and all four had the same form. The appearance of their works was as if it were a wheel in the middle of a wheel. When they went in any one of four directions. They did not turn aside when they went. And the rims were high and awesome, and the rims were covered with eyes all around the four of them. And when the living creatures went, the wheels went beside them. And when the living creatures were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up. Wherever the Spirit was to go, they went, because there the Spirit went, and the wheels were lifted together with them, for the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. When those went, these went. When those stood, these stood. And when those were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up together with them. For the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. And a likeness was over the head of the living creatures, an expanse like the appearance of an awesome crystal, stretched out over their heads. And under the expanse, their wings were straight, one toward another. Each one had two which covered one side, and each one had two which covered the other side of the body. And when they went, I heard the noise of their wings like the noise of many waters, like the voice of the Almighty, a tumult like the noise of an army. And when they stood still, they let down their wings, and a voice came from above the expanse that was over their heads. When they stood, they dropped their wings, and above the expanse over their heads was the likeness of a throne in appearance, like a sapphire stone, and on the likeness of the throne was a likeness as the appearance of a man high up above it. And from the appearance of his waist and upward I saw what looked like glowing metal with the appearance of fire all around within it. And from the appearance of his waist and downward I saw what looked like fire and brightness all around, as the appearance of a rainbow in a cloud on a rainy day, so was the appearance of the brightness all around it. This was the appearance of the likeness of the esteem of Yahweh. And when I saw it, I fell on my face, and I heard the voice of one speaking.
Will you also read one verse in chapter 3, verse 12, please?
Where? Ezekiel
Yes, sir.
3:12.
Yes.
Okay. And the Spirit lifted me up and behind me I heard the sound of a great rumbling voice. Blessed be the esteem of Yahweh from his place.
Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem.
Acts chapter 2. Acts chapter 2, verses 1 through 47. And then our last reading will be from 1 John, chapter 4, verses 1 through 6.
And after the 50 days of Shavuot, Pentecost, were fulfilled, all were assembled as one. All of a sudden there was a sound from heaven like a roaring wind, and all the house in which they were sitting was filled. And it appeared to them like tongues divided, and fire sat upon every one of them. And all of them were filled with the Ruach HaKodesh, and they were compelled to speak in different tongues, just as the Spirit had given them to speak. Now there were men who were living in Jerusalem who feared Elohim, Jews from all nations that are under heaven. And when that sound occurred, all the people gathered and were disturbed, because they were hearing each man among them who were speaking in their own language. Now they were astonished, all of them, and wondered while they were saying one to another, "Can't grasp it? These all of them who are speaking are Galileans. How do we hear, we each man, the tongue in which we were born? Parthians and Medes and Elamites and those who dwell in Beth Nahran and Cappadocians and those from the areas of Pontus and of Asia, and those from the areas of Phrygia and Pamphylia and of Egypt, and of the areas of Libya that are near to Cyrene, and those who have come from Rome, Jews and proselytes, and those from Crete and Arabians. Behold, we are hearing from them that they are proclaiming the wonders of Elohim in our language. And they were astonished, and all of them were amazed while saying one to another, "What's happening?" But others were mocking them while saying, "These men drank new wine and have become drunk." Afterwards Shimon Kepha stood among the 11 Shlechem and lifted up his voice and said to them, "Men, Jews, and all who dwell in Jerusalem, let this be known to you, and pay attention to my words. For it is not as you think that these men are drunk, for behold, it is now only until the third hour. But this is that which was spoken by the prophet Joel. Elohim said, in latter days it will be that I will pour out my ruach upon all flesh, and your sons will prophesy, and your daughters and your young men will see visions, and your elders will dream dreams. And upon my servants and upon handmaids I will pour out my ruach in those days, and they will prophesy. And I will cause signs in heaven and mighty deeds upon the earth, blood and fire and columns of smoke. The sun will be changed into darkness and the moon into blood before the coming of the great and awesome day of Master Yod-Heh-Vah. And it will be that all who call on the name of Master Yahweh will be saved. Men, sons of Israel, listen to these words. Yeshua the Nazarene, a man whom by Elohim was shown to you with miracles and with signs and with acts of power, those that Elohim did among you by his hand, as you know. This man who was set apart for this by the foreknowledge and will of Elohim, you delivered into the hands of the people who were without Elohim, and you nailed upon a stake and killed. But Elohim loosed the cords of Sheol and raised him because it was not possible that he be held in Sheol. For David spoke concerning him, I foresaw my master, for at all times he is at my right hand, so that I will not be moved. Because of this my heart rejoices, and my praise flourishes, and also my body dwells in hope. Because you will not leave my soul in Sheol, and neither will you allow your righteous one to see corruption. You have revealed the road of life to me. You will fill me with gladness with your presence. Men are brothers, allow me to speak boldly with you concerning the patriarch David, who was dead and also buried, and whose grave is with us until today. For he was a prophet, and he had known that oath that Elohim had sworn to him, that of the fruit of your loins I will establish a king upon your throne. And he foresaw and spoke concerning the resurrection of the Mashiach, that he was not left in Sheol, nor did his body see corruption. This Yeshua Elohim raised, and we are all his witnesses. And this is he who was exalted at the right hand of Elohim, and received the promise from the Father concerning the Ruach HaKodesh. And he has poured out this gift, which behold you see and you hear. For it was not that David did ascend into heaven, because he said, Master Yahweh said to my master, sit yourself at my right hand, until I place your enemies as a footstool for your feet. Truly, therefore, let all the house of Israel know that Master Yahweh has made this Yahshua, whom you have crucified, both Elohim and Mashiach. And when they heard these things, they were touched in their hearts, and they said to Shimon and to the rest of the Shechem, what should we do, our brothers? Shimon said to them, repent and be immersed, each of you, in the name of Master Yahweh Yeshua, for the forgiveness of sins, that you may receive the gift of the Ruach HaKodesh, for to you as the promise, and to your children, and to all those who are far away, whom Elohim will call. And with you many other words he would witness to them, and he would beseech them while saying, save yourselves from this perverse generation. And some of them readily received his word and believed and were immersed. And there were added in that day about 3,000 souls. And they were steadfast in their teaching of the Shechem, and they were for fellowshipping in prayer and in the breaking of bread. And fear came to every soul, and signs and many mighty deeds occurred by the hands of the Shechem in Jerusalem. And all those who had believed as one, and everything that they had were held in common. And those who had a possession would sell it and divide it to each one according to whatever was in need. And every day they were steadfast in the temple with one soul, and at home they were breaking loaves of bread. And while they were receiving food and rejoicing in the simplicity of their hearts, they were praising Elohim while finding favor before all the people. And every day our master Yahshua would add to those who lived among the congregation.
Thank you. Okay, our final reading will be 1 John, 1 Yachanan, chapter 4, verses 1 through 6. Chapter 4, verses 1 through 6.
My beloved, do not believe all spirits, but discriminate among spirits whether they are of Elohim, for many false prophets have gone out into the world. By this the spirit of Elohim is known. Every spirit that confesses that Yeshua the Mashiach has come in the flesh is of Elohim. And every spirit which does not confess that Yeshua the Mashiach has come in the flesh is not of Elohim, but he is of the false Messiah, of whom you have heard that he comes, and now he is already in the world. But you children are of Elohim, and that you have overcome them, because greater is he who is in you than he who is in the world. And they are of the world, therefore they speak from the world, and the world hears them. But we are of Elohim, and he that knows Elohim hears us, and he that is not of Elohim hears us not. By this we know the spirit of truth and the spirit of error.
Thank you. We'll welcome Rabbi Eliyahu Cohen.
Everybody but me?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll bring you a dish of, what would you like? A little bit of everything?
I don't know if I can have a little bit of everything, but, well, he's gonna get some.
Okay.
Was that the tuna over here as well? Food is great.
Do you need a
really.
Hello out there in TV land.
That's fine, you can have it back. Well, I'm gonna need your place where you're gonna be posting that for Tom and Miss Ember and them down in Oklahoma. Shabbat Shalom. Baruch Hashem. I was not attempting to call everybody to attention. I was listening, not only to everybody's hearts, but to the messengers and wanting to hear his voice. There's a dichotomy for us to witness with each other, and it never ceases to amaze me. On the one hand, we're told from the beginning that he's made us in his image. Okay? And Elohim said, let us make man in our image. And at the same time, elsewhere in Scripture, we are taught that the heart of man is, how does the King James put it, exceedingly... Yes. Isn't that an interesting mix?
Yeah. It's like,
So, you notice that from the beginning, we were made in his image. But after we left Gan Eden, after our ancestors, our fathers, had eaten of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, our heart became wicked. I really don't personally care for teachings that labor on how wicked you can be or how sinful you can be. There's quite enough of that already. You know, never cared for the browbeating. And I never quite could muster up enough fire and brimstone to bring down on people to make them grovel and all that goes with that. It's never a good idea to pressure people to make them fear the punishment, to make them fear the consequence. And you'll find this out over and over with people, this kind of persuasion. It works temporarily, but it doesn't work very long. And it doesn't give you any lasting results,
As soon as the pressure is relieved, they go back to
or worse. Now, there was a group I was teaching one time, and this fellow had opened his mobile home, a large single wide, and we managed to squeeze about 25, 35 people in there. And they were very hospitable, beautiful hearts. Now, the man of the house was accustomed to doing a lot of diligence, a lot of research, and so that was a great help because he would be someplace before I got there. And while most people might find that an impediment, I welcomed it. Because if I have everybody, all the men with me, and everybody's doing their study, everybody's doing their diligence, we're gonna get a lot farther along, and everybody's gonna have more to contribute. Okay? We can't go wrong. We might have a little bit more discussion than you expect, but that's what Midrash is for. So we can all collectively, with a good heart, get farther along with the Most High. Now, his wife, she had gone to school for 4 years in a Christian setting and to learn more about the Bible in a Bible college. And so that in and of itself gave her a greater storehouse of knowledge than the average person perhaps. But she was also very forward, which I enjoyed. They were genuinely good people. Now I asked a question one day in the study, and the question was this: why do people pay so much more attention to the laws of man than the laws of the Most High? And she was the first one to answer, and she was very forward, very honest, very frank, and I really enjoyed her answer. She said, because the laws of man will grab at you quickly, and they will bite you and hurt you very quickly. So you got to respond to them, so you don't have to deal with that. The laws of Yah, we have time to give forgiveness, so we can have a little pleasure in our disobedience. Now, she was honest. There was nothing to admonish, but what she said, she spoke the truth. How many people, if they answer you from their heart of hearts, are going to say something different? And every person I've spoken to, individually and in groups along the way, they may have not used the exact same language, but they've told me pretty much the same thing. I've got time to study more. I've got time to pray more. I've got time to get forgiveness. Well, that's partially correct. Now I'm going to throw you for a loop with something you're not going to accept. And that's okay. Time is an illusion. It only exists for the Most High's purposes, from His point of view. And because it's an illusion to us, like any other illusion, you can't see the forest for the trees once you're in the forest. Okay? While we're involved in the illusion, we can't see anything else. And because of the way man's laws grabbed us and bited us and take from us, that's why we respond to Him more, because the Most High doesn't seem to do that. We study His fruit of the Spirit. We want more intimacy with Him because of His love. But I've never met anybody that really would like to be on the wrong side of Him. I don't even want to be on the same planet with somebody who's on the wrong side of Him. So, there's an area that I'd like to discuss because today is Shavuot, because of this subject. And that is the feared area of judgment. Now, judges and judgment have been cast in many different ways, in many different lights. But very seldom do we really get down to it. I've heard many people say, God's gonna judge you for that. And indeed he will. And when you're pointing that finger out, you got a lot pointed back at you. So today we're going to discuss this. We've got several subjects that we're going to discuss, if you can stay with me. So I may snack in between, we may go long. I apologize for my lateness. I slept in a little bit longer than I should have. I showered slower than I should have. I had to take a little time to pray this morning. I had to speak to my wife. So I'm late. Guilty.
We still love you.
That's
Oh,
all right.
thank you.
We forgive you.
Thank you. Every time somebody disagrees with me, or they decide they don't like me, they don't want to be around me anymore, whatever it happens to be, I say thank you. You have to remember, speak on behalf of Scripture. In all of our directions, in all levels of our thinking. Okay? Yeshua told us in the Brit Hadashah, they're going to do this to you on my account. Not your account, on my account. They're going to treat you this way, do this to you because of my name and my Father's name. If they didn't receive me, they won't receive you. At the same time, we can't flaunt that. And we can't use it as a badge or a shield to be belligerent and be ugly and be haughty. It doesn't work either. Because the only time it's going to be on his account and because of his name is when we're in right standing and we're doing the right things the right way. It doesn't do you a lot of good to say, I'm a part of the remnant. I'm part of the elite. I'm chosen. Can't you see that? Doesn't work very well. When I'm among the Jewish community, I wear my business apparel. Get my pail off. I'm not going to grow it back again. Pail with the curls down the side. Okay. I wear my katan under my vest. I'm a good little fellow. Okay, but outside of that community, there's nobody to impress. How are you going to impress the Most High? With what you wear, with where you live, with what you drive. Who are you impressing? Him? All of creation is his. How are you going to impress somebody who's literally got everything? It all belongs to him from the beginning and it always will. How are you going to impress him with what you drive or where you live or who you rub shoulders with? All of my friends are billionaires. I'm a billionaire. I'm a very disciplined investor. I know my business. I know my job. Look at me. And you're going to impress him? Now, granted, it would be great to have $1 billion and be a billionaire. There's nothing in Scripture that forbids it or speaks ill against it. We are commanded to be profitable. We are commanded to do well. 70% of our financial laws are for business. We are to run our individual households as a business. If you have comfortable money, and you don't think I'm going off on tangents, this is all related. Comfortable money is not real wealth. Okay? Comfortable money is generally between $5 million and $25 million. You don't have any debts. You don't have any bills coming to your residence. Generally, you have an attorney and you have an accountant who take care of the monthly maintenance. It doesn't come to you individually. You don't go to your businesses that you own because you have managers managing them and everybody's profiting. Nobody's having to work too hard and everything is going well, and you're keeping an eye on them because you keep an eye on the managers and you spot check the businesses and you're investing in other things. You're overseeing your small empire. That's comfortable money. When you get above around $25, $26 million, you're getting into wealth. That's how it looks in the world. Okay? Everything above about $25.8 million is considered real wealth. And if you don't believe me, go check for yourself. Check with the IRS. Check with the Queen of England. Okay? Even her royal house, they no longer have true wealth. And they complain. Okay? That's what material gain is. There's nothing wrong with it. We are told to profit ourselves and run our households as a business. We are actually commanded with our financial laws to run our individual lives as a business. Tell me your name.
Hebrew or English?
Okay.
Hebrew.
Hananya.
I can't hear you.
Hananya.
That's half your name. Where's the rest of it?
Twinkle.
No. No.
Or Ben Dawid.
Tell me again.
Ben Dawid.
Okay.
Or Dawid.
There we go. Now, tell them why you answered me like that.
Because that's what made sense to me.
Okay, that's honest.
And I was
Okay.
looking for the answer that you wanted.
Oh, you would not have found that easily. It had to come from within. Okay? Yeshua told the people one time, aren't we all Ben Elohim? But he wasn't speaking of Elohim as the power, because the great majority of the time where we see Elohim in the Tanakh, it's meant to be the judge. Okay? Not all the time, but it's the majority of the time. Now, we are always held accountable for what we think, what we say, what we do. And he wants to see the works of our hands, because that's all of our interaction, that's all of our efforts in business, that's all of our efforts at running a family, that's all of our efforts with every relationship, the works of our hands. And he judges. And he judges with the plumb line in place, with the scales in place. Measure for measure, he does not compromise his judgments. And no matter how severe that may make you feel, his judgments are perfect. Now there's one thing about this that you really need to keep in mind. No matter how negative it sounds, no matter how severe it feels, Now, if you've never been in a courtroom and you never had to stand before the judge and he's presiding in his robes, that's his domain. Whenever an attorney said if it pleases the court, he's not asking that wooden bench up there if it's happy. He's talking to the judge. The judge has got several names, one, the most popular of which is the court. If it pleases the court. Well, let me see. I didn't have my Cheerios this morning. My tea was too cold. Go ahead anyway. He's a human being, in spite of the robes. So we got to deal with that. In our human interactions, if we have business friends, we are going to check on how they're doing before we really approach them in business. When you see your friends on the street, hey, how are you doing today? Isn't that almost everything? How are you doing today? And you hear that, yeah, fire. Okay, I'll talk to you a little bit later. We've got an area here that very few people really approach and are very seldom taught a lot. I'm not going to give you the whole teaching, we don't have time for that. But I'm going to open it up so you can be diligent and go back and do more research and do more study and take it more places. Okay? There is more than one word in Hebrew for the judge and for judging. So you can't, when you look at it in English, you can't discriminate well unless you really know which word you're dealing with. Now, the word for the judge is predominantly used, the majority of the time, means the one who restores to life.
That din.
I'm not going to tell you right now.
Okay.
The second thing you should understand is the judgments that come from this judge are restorations to life. If the judge, if his definition is one who restores to life, then it would follow, if we're using the least amount of logic and reasoning and critical thinking, ergo, his judgments restore to life. This should become a little important. Good morning. You almost did. Now, understand, if not today, at some point, please understand. I'm asking you to seek understanding in this matter for your benefit. I don't want to help you. I seldom seek to help anybody. However, I endeavor on a regular basis to benefit people. Do you have any idea what the difference is? You can look it up, even in English. The difference between help and benefit. Okay? Now, every time somebody's upset with you, and there's an accusation in the Hebrew communities of old, where do they have to go? Before the judges. The lower judges for the princes of the tribes, the clans, and the families, they were the firstborn. Priests are the firstborn. Kohanim are the firstborn. Are the right of the firstborn. It was their job to handle the lower cases and settle the dispute. And all the way back to Moshe with Yitro, every time you settle a dispute, you have to teach Torah so they understand why everything is settled like it is, based on Torah. That makes ultimately the Torah the judge. That's the requirement. to be a judge in Yisrael, you absolutely must use Torah as the judge. That's the reason you see so many times as it is written. We don't have any other blueprint to go by. Now, the judges, the priests of the firstborn, the princes, and it was the Most High who called them princes before him. When he said, gather the princes up and bring them to, let me enjoy them having a meal. He was selectively choosing the firstborn. Now, if these lower judges cannot settle the dispute, if they feel like it's beyond them, it is not the people with the dispute that can appeal it, because there is no appeal in our courts. It is the judge himself in that lower court of the firstborn who sends it to Leviathan judges, sons of Aharon. And when it goes to the sons of Aharon, the Leviathan, the Kohanim there is no appeal to that ruling, because the Most High upholds it every time. So when it goes to the Kohanim of the Leviathan, and they make their ruling, they make their judgment, and they show you where it's at in Torah and why, that's it. There's no appeal after that. There's nobody to appeal to. You can go to the altar and say, oh, Yahweh, blessed be He. And He's going to say, did you go to my Kohen? Yes. Did He judge? Yes. Why are you talking to me about it? It sounds frivolous, but that's the order that He put together. It also sounds very severe and terrible. But in His wisdom, let's look at what He crafted for our benefit. Because the judge who restores to life, how does He do that? What is the mechanism with which He uses to do that? He uses Torah. Have you broken Torah? The clock is ticking. Tell me now. Have you sinned against man and the Most High? Yes. That's not how it works. Now, it's not important to outline the whole system here. The direction we have to take here is how the judge and his judgments restore to life. He uses Torah to judgment. It's absolute. However, the primary definition of Torah is teaching, instruction, and direction. Now, for a moment, we got to look at that direction part, because colloquially, in the secondary definition of Torah, that direction, Torah is seen as an arrow flies. And that arrow, when it flies, it points you where? The target.
The way to go.
What's the target? The target is Mashiach, the anointed one. The whole purpose and design of Torah and the giving of Torah is to keep us going in the direction of Mashiach until we're there. And then you make Torah your domicile with Him as the head. If you're living in Torah, you're surrounded by Torah in your lifestyle, because your lifestyle is living Torah, we say to Yeshua as the firstborn son, Yeshua as Israel, Yeshua as the head, that he is indeed living Torah. And so, being with the judges, judged with Torah, who are they using to judge you with? So the arrow points you to him while it uses him to get you there. Does this come together at all? Does it make any sense? The sons of Aharon cannot judge without Torah. There's no blueprint. It won't work. The sons of Aharon are forbidden to have an opinion beyond Torah. People often say, well, what do you think? What's your opinion on that? I don't know. I never had one. I got Torah. That sounds improbable or perhaps impossible at times, but once you start having Torah as a lifestyle and it becomes preferred to you, and it's all around you, and everything else besides that becomes foreign to you, and that's your lifestyle witness, Torah, who's Yeshua is living Torah, is pointing us to the Anointed One. And the Anointed One, once he's pleased with us in restoring us to life with fruit of the Spirit, because you can't really live Torah without fruit of the Spirit. It doesn't work well. It's been proven many times in the history of our people. As he says, we are a stiff-necked bunch. You know, from our disobedience and our scatterings and how we've had to be judged and disciplined so many times, exhaustively, most of the world has come up with their philosophies. You know, if at heart you don't succeed, in real life and in business, it's not important how many times you get knocked down and you fall down. What's important is
Get up. Get up.
all of our acronyms, all of our quotes, they come from all of our experiences from ancient times. Scattered all through Torah and the prophets, we find that it's such a loss, it's such sadness when a righteous man turns away and goes to sin. And just a rough passage or two down from there, it says, but when a man who has sinned becomes righteous, all of heaven's domain rejoices. And all in all, we have the judge who restores to life, and his judgments who are restoration to life. All right, is everybody still going the same direction with me? Receiving with this? If not, let me know. I'm not trying to be too elementary or germane. I just need to make sure everybody has it. Okay? Now, let me share with you how to use this as a beneficial tool to benefit yourself and others. When somebody says to me, I don't believe you, you're a liar, I don't like you, get away from me, whatever it happens to be, thanks them. Thank them. Because the next step is for you or me to go before the master and say, please judge between us. Judge them and judge me. They're not asking for a victory in court to step out in front of the microphone and say, I won the case. That's not what we're going after. We want the judge who restores to life to judge this person and judge me. And that judgment is a restoration to life. And if I'm alive now and I've made a mistake, and he judges me, what's going to happen to my life then? Continually. So every time somebody has a difficulty with me and I say, please judge between us, what's happening with me? And where am I going?
Towards.
Now, that judgment might initially be a bit unpleasant. But I'll tell you, if you get stinky and smelly, manage for some reason, go a week or two without bathing, when you first get into the shower, you're uncomfortable. But once all that starts coming off, oh boy. When he's giving us restoration to life, and you, remember, you're before the Cohen at this time. And what's the Cohen's job besides judging? Atonement for guilt. So if you're being judged, what's happening simultaneously? How is he restoring you to life? Using Torah as the blueprint. Atonement for the guilt. And then you can seek forgiveness for the sin. Whatever slight that it was. Does this sound like a terrible thing? I can't count how many times when I've been studying I've made mistakes and somebody says, that was wrong. Show me. Right here. Can't you see? Well, you're absolutely right. Thank you so much. Huh? Thank you. And if I've been teaching, I have to say, okay, wait a minute, I gotta make a correction. And I do this every time. Okay? I told you this and it should have been this. So let's make the correction. That way we all profit with the correction. Well, I made a mistake. Just straightforward. Don't tell anybody right now, let me look at it. Okay? We make our corrections profitable to all of us. But sometimes it's ways that we don't expect. And when we're not happy about it, sometimes we want to put substitutionary answers in there. And Moshe came down from the mountain and he had the tablets. And everybody's frolicking around this golden calf. And he turns to Aharon. What did you do? I left you in charge. We've got a history together. We're brothers. What did you do to me? He's watching us. Aharon says, well, I didn't have any choice. They came around me. They forced this issue. And the goat went in and out popped the calf. That's what it says. Now, what's really interesting in that passage was that Aharon was not accounted any sin.
I never understood that, so explain it.
As Aharon, the first Kohen Hagadol, he's been blessed. He's been given a job to do. So there is a requirement there of the sons of Aharon. We must atone for ourselves for guilt immediately upon recognizing what we've done. And then we must immediately seek forgiveness.
And that's what he did.
Yes. Now remember, Moshe Moshe, even though they were brothers, and they both came from that son of Yaakov, Levi, Moshe was never included in the line of Aharon. Moshe was never made a Kohen by the Most High. The line of the Kohanim was with his brother, Aharon. Don't find that interesting either, huh? Aharon was made a prophet of an Elohim, but it was not the one true Elohim. Moshe was made a prophet of the one true living Elohim, but Moshe was also made an Elohim. He was told, when you go before Pharaoh, Pharaoh is the Elohim of this world. You will be an Elohim over him. And Aharon will be your prophet. He was never removed from that office. Aharon was never removed from that office. Nor were his line. It's interesting where these little tidbits kind of fit back in. But outside of what he did in his life, Moshe was never given a line to judge from. It was Aharon's line. Moshe's line actually came to an end. Most interesting. Nice biblical trivia. Okay? But we need to know the tools that we have to help each other be restored to life, day by day. If somebody's getting on your nerves, and everybody likes to say, on my last nerve. Well, how many did they go through to get to that one? How many was that? Did you forgive them more than 70 times 7 in a single day? Were they hitting those nerves at a run? How did we get there? How do you get to a point with somebody where you can no longer use fruit of the Spirit between you? Where you no longer feel fruit of the Spirit toward that person in that moment? How do we get to the place to where, irrespective of how we've been taught and what we receive and what we accept, that we are no longer doing? Because that's what causes us to get judged. Yeshua told people in his public ministry, because you say you know, your sin stays with you, because you're not doing. And it's fail-safe. Every time I talk to somebody who has studied the scripture at least a little bit, the first thing they say to me is, I know. They never say, I'm doing. It's always, I know. Anyway. Not once has anybody said, not to worry, I'm doing. Not once, Jew or Gentile. It's the doing we need to be doing. The old Western movies years ago used to say, it takes the doing of a thing to get it done. The whole purpose of judgment by the judge to restore to life, and his judgments be restoration of life, is to involve us in right standing by doing, by activity, the lifestyle that we were supposed to be born to with the tools that we were given spiritually that translate into materialism, the fruit of the Spirit and the fruit of the light, so active in our life, producing and reproducing so abundantly, the overflow is going everywhere. We have no effort to control, and it's like a Niagara Falls in every direction. That's how it's supposed to be. And if you've got that much fruit of the Spirit producing and reproducing in your life, and it's overflowing into other lives so much, when they get irritated because it's foreign to you, then you can say, Kol Halel. You ever hurt yourself? And it really hurts, and it starts itching, and you say, oh yeah, it's healing. But while it's itchy, what do you want to do? You want to stop the healing. You're scratching because it itches. It's an itch, you just got to scratch. But the itch is the first indication of you starting to heal. So when you start scratching, what are you taking away from yourself? That's why they used to call the adversarial scratch. So when someone is having some adversity with you, ask him, just between us, please, now, for this day. Don't wait. It may be a little unpleasant because you may have some things that are not quite right in your life. Okay? We all do. There's not one of us that can ever sit up here and say, not me. Can't you see my veneer? Can't you see my presentation? Isn't it without fault? No, don't look behind me. So consider it a privilege, because remember, the Most High owns everything. It's His creation. He said, I'm hardening Pharaoh's heart so I can have honor added to my name. Do you think Pharaoh said, sure, go ahead, harden my heart. I'll deal with it. I'm sure everybody has read the writings of Job. Do you think the Most High said, hey, my trusted and worthy servant, Job, guess what? Because I love you so much, this is what I'm getting ready to dump on you with. So just so you know, it's coming. There was nothing like that. But in all things, what did He do? Gives and Yah takes. I can't imagine that. My family's dear to me. I just, I can't imagine going through that. Yet, how much of a heart in a man does it take to do that? Am I that good of a servant of Him? I don't know. I've never had to go through that. Would I measure up to that standard with Him? I don't know. And I really don't want to know. That's as honest as I can be. When I look at what some parents have had to go through with their children, oh, my heart hurts for them. Oh. If you love your children, how can you not hurt when you see somebody else going through these things? Now I'll tell you, if you've ever had to go without food and be hungry, you'll be one of the first people to feed somebody who's hungry. If you've ever had to go without having a coat in the cold, if you've ever had to go through hardship, and you see those going through those hardships because you can relate to it, you're one of the first ones to offer assistance. But if you've never experienced hunger, and you see those commercials, feed the hungry, get that remote going, get that off my tube. I don't want to hear it. And it's not just the people that have money. And it's no sin to have money. Do you know why most people don't have money today? There's two specific reasons. Three actually, but two primary ones. One, they've been taught not to have it. No, they have been taught not to have it. Our public education system teaches people to be employees and work themselves to death. The truly wealthy have entrepreneur schools in various ways that they send their children to, and the children are taught from a young time in their life to be entrepreneurs and business people. Why do you think it's called Harvard School of Business? And yet, even in high schools, you have, I can count 25 of them across the United States right now. There are private entrepreneurship schools, high schools, that young people graduate from, that they spend most of their time majoring in how to thrive in business. They're not taught to be employees, they're taught to be in business. That comes with all of the things that happen in business, the good and the bad. And that's a difference in perspective and mindset. The second thing, besides how you're taught to be in poverty, is a series of choices you make because of the way you've been taught. If you've been taught to be an employee, and you've been taught to be impoverished, and you've been taught to work for 40, 50, 60 hours a week, retire after 30, 40 years, and live 10, 20 years in an anguished retirement, and be one step above food stamps, and that is what you planned in your life, that's what you're going to get. And so you've been taught this, and when you wake up to it midstream or later, and you go, I don't like this, what can I do about it? You have no clue as to what choices to make a change. And the worst thing is the teachers of Torah don't teach the financial laws correctly so that you can make changes here before him. We need these judges. We need these judgments for restoration to life. Even when it's against our will and against our choice. If you're living on $1,200 a month, and you're having to go to your local assemblies and ask for food, and you're having to ask for programs from the utility companies, and you're doing everything possible just to survive every month. Because that's what you've been taught to do. Those are the kind of choices you've been taught to make. You've got no business tithing. If anything, you give your atonement for guilt offerings in the appointed times 3 times a year. Because through our financial laws, we're commanded to take care of our monthly maintenance. We're taught to run our homes and our home budget as a business. That's a profit and loss. If you're not making a profit in business, you shut the doors. Individually, our daily lives is meant to be run as a business. He says, I command you, being grafted into me, produce fruit. It is a commandment. And it says in John 15, if you choose not to produce fruit, I'm going to take you off the vine, and I'm going to bundle you up with these other stubborn people, and you're getting thrown in a lake of fire. That's what it says. And if you don't understand our business laws, you won't understand that commandment to bear fruit. That's not just, oh, I feel so much loving kindness towards you. Oh. Well, that loving kindness goes into accountability in your finances, in your budgeting. It goes into the way you have food in your house. It goes into the way you take care of your animals, two-legged and four-legged. Okay? That's getting in slow, isn't it? You ask a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you, is that where it says the husbandman must be the first partaker of the fruits?
Yes.
Is that the husbandman meaning the husbandman?
No. From the King James, the husbandman man is the caretaker of the vine in John 15.
Which would, can you tell me?
That's the Most High. That's why we give back the first fruits of everything. It's His.
Okay, so he must be the first partaker of the fruits would be him.
Always. No matter what those fruits are, good or bad.
But I thought you were saying that if you don't take care of your own family, you're worse than him.
Don't tithe.
Yeah, that's what you were saying.
But first, but atonement for guilt and giving of first fruits, okay, not quite the same as tithing.
Okay.
Okay? First fruits can be money. In Proverbs, I think it's chapter 3 or chapter 8, it says give 10% from all your wages, your profits, and earnings, depending on the translation you're using. Okay? Now, if you have a budget and you're barely making your monthly budget and you're barely making your monthly maintenance, and if giving that 10% that it talks about in Proverbs is going to injure your budget, then you bring to a Kohen your 10% and you give it to him. Say you only had $100 that month and you bring him $100. That's your 10% for the month, that $100. This is what's supposed to happen. The Kohen takes the $100 from you. He's required to administer Yah's blessing for the offering, because everything we receive is a guilt offering as well. Even a tithe. Whatever comes into the Kohen's hand, we are required to administer his blessings and atone for the guilt. Period. Once I or any other Kohen would receive that $100, and you have received that atonement, you've received his blessing, because man cannot bless, only Yah can bless. We can only administer it. Then, I am commanded, as a son of Aharon, to do an act of tzedakah. Does anybody know what that is?
Charity.
Right.
Act of righteousness, an act of justification. So I am going to take at least $90 to $95 of that $100 you just gave me, and I'm going to grab your hand and I'm going to put it back in your hand. And I'm going to say, go take care of your business at home. That's what we're supposed to do. Oh, you're giving it to me. I know it hurts you, and I know you're doing without. And yeah, I appreciate it. And yeah, I like that. And, yeah. And after a while, you don't have places to stuff the money you're stealing from them. Everything from times of old stops at the seat of Moshe. That's the way it's set up. One of the most unpleasant things in Christianity today is when you ask them about the seed of Moshe. And you get all kind of answers. I'm not bashing Christianity, but it is a state of affairs. We don't do that anymore. That was in ancient times. That's all gone now. Well, whoever sits in the seat of Moshe, you know, we don't worry about that. Okay? Only the sons of Aharon sit in the seat of Moshe. Come here. The buck stops there. We are commanded to minister to the Most High. Minister, if you look at the definition, it means to work, to labor. We are commanded to serve Yisrael. And in serving Israel, throughout the prophets and the writings, we are told we are not supposed to have poverty within our communities. We're not supposed to have desolation in our communities. We are not supposed to have lack within our communities. Everybody is supposed to have enough substance to bring to the appointed times so we don't have to sin against the Most High and be there empty-handed. So if people are coming with their tithes, if they're coming with their offerings, and they're not having enough to meet their monthly maintenance, we are supposed to, as Kohanim and the men of Israel as a community, we are commanded to do acts of tzedakah to ensure there is no poverty there. There is nobody with lack. It is supposed to stay active in the community for the purpose of our people. This is one of the ways his works are meant to be routine and common among our people. No, I may not get rich that way, but we're going to serve the Most High that way.
So where do the churches fall in line when they get up there and they say, you're supposed to tithe 10% to us out of all your paycheck? What
Well,
do you
one,
do
they
then?
would be stealing from the
Where-
Most High because it's supposed to go to him. The only one he designated to receive tithes were the Kohanim from the line of Levi. Okay, however, there is the ever popular verse that an ox is supposed to eat from what he treads. I mean, we have to bring that up. That's a part of the portrait here. What does that mean? It means that anybody who is working full time to bring for believers and to someday work in the kingdom, whenever that is, they should have their monthly maintenance taken care of. That does not mean driving Mercedes and Bugattis.
Yeah, right.
That does not mean owning 3 jets. Now, you have some people that I really adored. Billy Graham. He lived in a modest house all of his life. And he made sure that he never touched everything that was coming in. He was one among a number that every time they'd buy him a new car, you know what he'd do with it?
Give it away.
He'd sell it and use the money to help the poor. That was his common practice. They got to where they wouldn't give him a new car anymore. They'd bring him over somebody else's car to use. Because anything you put in his name, he was going to sell it and use the money. Down in Dallas, they have a ministry. They're Christian. And this ministry is strictly to India. And the people that run the ministry are Indian people. And they train Indians to go back to India to die. Well, in India, it's a common practice for the Hindi and the Muslims to kill anybody who's teaching or preaching from the Bible. They don't care who you are. So they know this ahead of time, but they train to do this and they go back to do that. They get a lot of donations. They've been doing this for 30 years. And they have a book that lists everybody that dies for his namesake. They know when they get on the plane, they go back to India after they've been trained, there's a 90% chance they won't make it to the next birthday. And every time they get a car donated, they get a house donated, You know what they do? They sell it, and they use the money to feed the poor and the impoverished and help with people's surgeries and medicines. And they're still in business after over 35, 40 years. I have lunch with these guys about once every 6 months. And they insist on it. The heads of this ministry, every time I get to them, they offer me an offering, and they ask for God's blessings. And they ask me to come and walk among them. And now they're starting to ask me if I'll go with one of them back to India. I said, sure. I'm not going to take my wife, but I'm sure it'll be an adventure if I make it over there. Who has me in their hand? Yes. I mean, whether I pass in India or on the streets of Jerusalem, where am I going? What did Rav Shavuot say? If I live to Mashiach. If I die to Mashiach. That's what Stephen Covey used to call a win-win situation. How much do you believe that? How much do you believe to live is to live to Mashiach? To die is to die to Mashiach. How much do you believe that? You know how I'm going to know? Because if you're really structuring and building that, believing, and you're going to trust in it, you're going to seek shelter in it, and you're going to walk it out in faith, it's going to show in your life. I'm not going to have to ask you, do you believe? Do you really believe? Show me you believe. That's what we do to each other. If I ask somebody, do you believe? And whenever they tell me yes, I'll say, are you sure? And they say yes. I say, well, come stand with me. I do it a lot. I'm going to take you at your word. And I'm going to, if you tell me something, and it's not true, well, I trust Yah, and I believe Yah, and He's given me these gifts. But you have no evidence of any of this in your life? I'm not going to say, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take the words out of your mouth, and I'm going to take them to the feet of the Master, and I'm going to say, make it so. Make it true with your spirit of truth. What He said to me, make it true in His life. Raise up another in you. I don't care if you lied to me on purpose or by accident. I don't care if you lied to me because you didn't have the heart to tell me the truth about yourself. I don't care. When you speak these words, I'm going to ask Him to make it true in your life. I want to benefit you. Now, if you tell me you're a prophet and you're battling all sorts of stuff, and I'm going, oh, gee whiz. Let me take a step back. Okay. Wrap that armor around a little bit more, a little more fruit of the Spirit. Okay. He said he's a prophet. Make it so. We have to benefit each other, even whenever we stumble, even whenever we make a mistake. And we have to do it with joy and with excitement and gladness in our heart. I'm hoping you can receive this. And I'm hoping with the hope of Mashiach. Don't harbor things against people. Benefit them. Take whatever's not right, take it to Him and ask Him to make it right. That's what we're supposed to do. You don't need to have enemies. You don't need to have arguments. I don't agree with you, and I got this, and it says this, and I'm just gonna let you know the way it is. Okay? Well, we're commanded not to argue with each other concerning Scripture. That eliminates that whole thing. Okay, thank you. And while you're feeling that way, let me give you some more fruit of the Spirit. And while you're feeling that way, because you're so sure that you're right. Okay, John, he knows he's right. He believes he's right. Will you please give him enough study and enough prayer so he's right? Find God's goodness in it. Go to him about it. He can do that. That's his job. There's no need to argue with anybody. I had a guy one time say, "You're a liar, I don't believe you." Okay. Well, aren't you going to say anything to me? You just called me a liar. What could I say? Whatever I say, you're not going to believe it. I went a week without talking to him. He says, "You're not talking to me anymore." Oh, I was a liar. What can I say? That's a true story. That way I don't bring any sin to his door. I don't cause him to sin against me. And he doesn't have to answer to him for that. I'm not that important. He can always get somebody to do it better than me if I'm not doing it well enough. It's not important enough to cause somebody else to sin against me. I'm not that important. There is a prayer Jewish people pray just before Yom Kippur during the 10 high holy days of the year. And they're very austere, beautiful prayers. Please, 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 let no man have to be judged because of sinning against me. Why wait until Yom Kippur to pray the prayer? Once a year? Come on now, you live with everybody all year long. Why pray it once a year? We didn't come here for ourselves. We came here for everybody else. Why else would we need fruit of the Spirit producing and reproducing so abundantly, and it remains to honor the Father, that it just kind of overflows and overwhelms others around you? I've had people say, "Oh, it's so nice being around you. You're so calm and peaceful. How did you do that?" And I say, "Well, I worship too, but I don't have that." If you've never been taught the things that you've learned this weekend so far, now you have. You have the basics. Study more. Do something with it. All of our work is activity. All of our monies are meant to be in activity. All of our time is meant to be in activity. Our sleep is meant to be in activity. Our gift of life in totality is meant to be activity. We don't have the power to actually bless somebody, but we can sure share fruit of the Spirit, and every time He blesses us, we can share what we experience, so they in turn can enjoy their blessings more. There's a situation. And it's a situation you can't avoid. There's a circumstance. It won't go away. And it's there every day of your life. And it's there with every person that you look at. And every person that looks at you. It never is going to go away. And that situation is your lifestyle witness. It's not what you say, it's what you do. It isn't what you know, it's what you do. With a good heart. One of the wonderful things the fruit of the Spirit, when it abounds within us, does, is it brings out that image of Him that created us. And when people can see Him in you, and they can't see you anymore, that is a wonderful place to be. So, the tools that we have are fruit of the Spirit, abounding in our life, producing and reproducing continually, non-stop. They're never off the clock. They do their job through our life. His work working through us. We in turn, as the fruit of the Spirit abounds in our life, we give Him back the first fruits of it. We do that with our prayers and rejoicing. And with our praise. So we can skip around and say, Hallel, 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 Hallel. And then we can add a little bit on the side, you know. Okay. We've got to rejoice. But you can only really do it with His goodness and with His fruit of the Spirit and right standing in Torah before Him. It's not that hard. In Devarim it says, Torah is not way up in the sky. It's right here. It's not across the water. It's right here. It's not down below. It's right here. It's right here in your mouth and your heart. Torah, teaching, instruction, direction. So, what are you going to teach me today? Okay, right. Don't forget to take the toast out of the toaster before it gets cold. Got it. That may seem like a very small, trivial thing. But if you know your child or your mate really enjoys that hot toast in the morning, it becomes important to you. It may sound funny, but maybe that toast doesn't taste the same to them in the morning if it's cold. So we benefit each other with a lot of little things. I went to teach in the city one time. I think back in 1997. And it was so funny. I got there, and there was 4 people there. A husband, a wife, and 2 friends. So where's everybody? Oh, we're it. Okay. Where will I be sleeping? Oh, on that couch on the back porch. Okay. We got some blankets for you. It was about 28 degrees outside. They had moved into their house that they were building. The house was yet unfinished. So they were not asking me to do anything they weren't doing. Okay, well, I'm here. Okay, yeah, tell me what you want. So, Friday, there was good teaching. They were having a wonderful time. Then all of a sudden, one of the friends says, I gotta go. I gotta go right now. Okay. Something I said? He said, Jan, it was everything you said. Okay. All right, Jan. This was what you said you wanted. He didn't come back that day. But he came back Shabbat morning. With about 25 people. And they brought potluck, food, drinks for the rest of the weekend with them. They brought some cots, some sleeping bags, a couple of tents. The house was unfinished. And they chose to do this in 28-degree weather. That was in the daytime. Okay, all right. So we started teaching some more. And then one of the other fellows that just arrived says, I gotta go. Okay. Was it something I said? Yeah, it was. Okay. He came back 4 hours later. He had 4 policemen with him. Boy, he really didn't like what I said. Okay. So when the policemen got there, they took their hats off and left them in the car. They took all of their accoutrements off and left them in the cars. And they came in with their Bibles. No gun, no handcuff. Okay, thank you. They came to study. Okay. You never know what the Most High is going to stir up around you.
Right.
Or how He's going to do it. And how He's going to fulfill that moment for His purposes. Now, I made a statement before the Most High many years ago, and He makes me live up to it. I don't care if you want me to teach the rocks. I don't care if you want me to teach the trees or the desert. You send me, I'll go, I'll teach. It's gotten me to into some really interesting adventures. I've never filled a stadium. I've had some crowds before, and I was always hoping they didn't bring any rope. The point is, if you're willing to submit yourself to Him unconditionally, if you're willing to give Him that first fruits of the fruit of the Spirit unconditionally, that love, and joy with Him through that love as He does us, and all the rest of it, unconditionally, you don't reach it into the commitment. If you're doing everything with Him and for Him unconditionally, which incidentally, that's how we are to love our mates and our family, unconditionally. When I perform a marriage, I wrote up a marriage ceremony that I used with people some time ago. And they don't do vows, they do pledges. And I tell them, pledge to each other that you're going to love each other unconditionally and forgive each other unconditionally. And you're going to do it before Him always. And if you can't do that, don't get married. If that is beyond you, you've got no business being married. Because if you can't accept the imperfections of another from the beginning, you're not going to be able to do it later. Because you're expecting them to accept your imperfections now and later. You have to not only accept it, you've got to love them in their imperfections, and you've got to nurture them in their imperfections, and it has to be an unconditional love, an unconditional commitment. We have to start with Him, because if we don't do it with Him, we're not going to do it with anybody else. And if anybody else tells you anything else, take that to Yah and tell them to make them right. Because if the Most High did not love us unconditionally, we wouldn't have His word as being upheld. If Mashiach did not love his Father unconditionally, he never could have been the Lamb who was worthy to be slain. We, in turn, must love him unconditionally, period. And today is the day where everything comes together every year for this. Every year for Shavuot, he renews our covenant with him. Not Yom Kippur, Shavuot. Shavuot comes at the end of the first harvest, before the second planting and second harvest of the year. So Shavuot is in between planting and harvesting. And in the midst of harvesting, I'm going to have to turn the electricity up here and start jabbing people with wires. When you look around at people, can you see him in others? Can you look at your neighbor? Can you see his image of goodness within each one? If not, start looking for it. Especially in the people that don't like you. Especially in the people that speak ill of you. Look for it. Nurture it. Ask him to make it bigger. Ask him to make it right. Pray for them. Give them all the fruit of the Spirit in their life. All of it. Producing and reproducing in their life abundantly. And it remains honor to the Father. That's the only prayer you got to pray, brothers. That's it. That's the only prayer you got to pray. Do you know why? Because he's good to his word. And for him to answer my prayer, he's got to do all the background work necessary in their life for that to be. He reverse engineers it. For them to have the fruit of the Spirit, producing and reproducing in their life abundantly, and it remains on the Father, they got to have the presence and activities of the Spirit. For the Spirit preceding the fruit of the Spirit. For the presence and activity of the fruit of the Spirit to be there, they have to be commanded by Yeshua to come from the Father. And for Yeshua to come in and come from the Father, we have to have accepted him. And for us to accept him, we have to be given to him first. For us to be given to him, it has to come from the Most High, his Father. And for that to happen, the Father has to have called us, and we have to have answered. We got to get there. And so when we pray for somebody else to have all the fruit of the Spirit in their life, they got to make that journey too. He's got to make that happen. I don't care how he does it. That's his job. He didn't ask me to approve his plans. He told me how to pray. We are to pray for our desires to be fulfilled. The problem is, we don't pray for our desires and his desires to be the same. Give me my desires after you fulfill your desires in my life. That's how I pray. Huh?
Once more?
Give me the desires of my life after all of your desires of my life are fulfilled.
Yep.
It's got to be him. 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 He's first. He's always first. First fruits. Always first. You would not believe how he reciprocates. When it says, I'll open all the windows of heaven, you won't be able to contain it. You have no idea. We think of materialism and materialistic gain. We think of the seasons as they come and go. We can think of the immediacy of the emotional, physical, and psychological fulfillment of close friends and mates and family. But he's thinking about all of it, all the time, without missing a beat. We say we want to be so close to him and so intimate with him so that that experience is greater than anything we could imagine. What would we do with it if he answered that? You go into shock? What would you, if he answered that prayer right now, what would happen to the rest of your life?
The dog chasing the car.
Yeah. Why do you think he said no man can see my face? It's not that it's a bad idea, but how are you going to deal with that? It's not so much we think of a material bright light that's going to injure our physical vision. It's not the physical vision we got to be concerned about. It's already his breath we breathe. It's already his gift of life that animates us. And so we've got him already. And what are we doing with what he gave us? What are we doing with our gift of life? What are we doing with this breath that we breathe all the time? What are we doing with him that we have? And yet we say, I want you. I want you. I want more of you. Please give me more of you. Hallel, 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 hallel. I want more. I want more. What are you going to do when you get it? You ever gone to one of these places and they got these trays and got hors d'oeuvres? And they always got somebody coming through hors d'oeuvre after hors d'oeuvre. And they got these little bitty skinny glasses. You can have a taste. You can wet your lips. There you go. Everybody stands around talking like they're having a good time for 3, 4, 5 hours. And then when they leave, they say, oh, we had such a wonderful time. Come on, let's get out of here. I want to go eat. You know? He gives us enough of him to sustain us to where we want more. But we really don't know what we want. We say we want more, but we don't know what we want or how to ask for it. So he gave us a way to do that through the Spirit. When you really feel his love and you're really loving somebody else with his love, how does that feel? Because he gave us emotions as a filter, we can't exist or do anything without them. We have to feel everything. Constructively, destructively. We have to feel everything one way or the other. No matter how good we think, eventually we got to filter it through the emotions. If you want to know what a witness of the Spirit is, you've got to look at fruit of the Spirit. And if you don't have fruit of the Spirit and you feel it for somebody, you're going to feel like you just came in out of the cold. When you've been out in really cold weather, you can't hardly feel your fingers and toes and your knees, and you even forget you got a backside, and you come in, and all of a sudden that warmth starts washing over you. How do you describe that? What you feel inside with that. Now multiply it about 10,000 times. And that's what the beginnings of his love are like. Inside.
I don't get that. I think I need another analogy.
So she will do well in his kingdom. Shavuot. You ever seen a circle? A full circle drawn, symmetrically correct? Tell me where it begins. Tell me where it ends.
Where the artist chooses. Where the artist chooses.
Oh, no.
Doesn't.
once you have the circle, and it's complete, there is no beginning or end to it. It's circular. And if you make it 3-dimensional, or 4-dimensional, or 5-dimensional, or 6-dimensional, it is still without end and without beginning. One of the first things that we learn about the Most High is He is what? Without beginning, without end. Then why do we keep looking down the linear line to see where He began? Or look down the other linear line to see where He might end? We don't live in yesterday. We don't live in tomorrow. We have never seen tomorrow. It always becomes today. We've never experienced a tomorrow. It only exists in our imagination. We've never experienced a yesterday. It's already gone. And how we lived that particular yesterday, we're not going to live it the same today. It's not there for us anymore. We live our entire gift of life in the immediacy of now, the present moment. It never changes. Yesterday we did the same thing now. This afternoon we're going to do the same thing now. It's always now. Well, I'll do it tomorrow. Really? When Tuesday becomes today, if you stay on that schedule, how are you still going to do what your schedule? How are you going to do Tuesday's schedule today? Even after Tuesday becomes today. It was scheduled for 2 days away. How can you get it done if you schedule it for 2 days away? It never gets here. Tomorrow, day after tomorrow, it never gets here. We never see it. We never see next year. We never see last year. It's always now. We change the number so that we can count. We take tremendous pride in counting. We do. That's a part of our intelligence. We are so smart. And we can remember what we count. We just have trouble remembering living. We can remember everything about life. We can talk to others about living life, but we have trouble living the life. We can make it didactic. We can change the dynamic. But in actually living that life with fruit of the Spirit in the immediacy of the moment, to please the Most High and give Him pleasure in us, we have problems there. We get in the way. Shavuot, Feast of Weeks. Because we count 7 weeks in the counting of Omer. The counting of Omer is mentioned in Scripture. It's mentioned in Torah. Omer is a unit, like we use to measure the wheat and other things. Okay, why do we count the Omer? What's the purpose of the Omer? What does Omer as a unit establish? Why do we have 49 of them? What's the significance of those 7 weeks? What's being accomplished in those 7 weeks? Why do we do that? What does it take for 49 counts of Omer to get us to Shavuot? Nobody ever teaches on that. They don't know. Never thought about that, huh? But it's a great subject to talk about. What's the count of Omer today? It's 23. Oh, let's do the prayer for the 23 count. It's the same prayer every day. It's the same blessing every day. We change the number. But we feel good after we do it. And when we do it, what have we done? Well, we did the count. You did the count. That's absolutely wonderful. What happens now? Well, we count again tomorrow. Tomorrow never gets here. It's quite a conundrum. He put it in there, so he's got a purpose for it. He's never given us anything that there was no purpose in.
It's a shadow.
Oh, a shadow. Ooh, I like that one. When he gave us a shadow, he told us it was a shadow, like the Mishkan, the tabernacle. How come the tabernacle has two names? It's called the tabernacle and tent of meeting. What's the difference? Why two names?
More is revealed.
Oh.
Why? Okay.
Huh?
I didn't hear what you said.
Tell her again what you said.
More is revealed through two names.
And I said, oh.
Alrighty then.
There's a few areas that we can go to. We can really have a good time with the teaching.
Yeah.
You want to know about the county of O'Mara, since I brought it up?
Yeah, yes.
Curious? Sure you want to know?
Yes.
Yeah, let me just kind of pull this back in a little bit. Pull back in a little bit.
Teeth, yeah. Build up a fruit.
We start off with
Build up a
Pesach,
fruit.
the 14th of Nisan. The very first Pesach, we received commandments regarding the Pesach. You'll find most of that in Shavuot chapter 12. It was the commandments for the very first Pesach and all proceeding from there. It is the very first time we were given commandments as a people. It was the first time all of us together as a people in unity obeyed the same commandments at the same time. With unity, very high. The commandments for the Pesach made us a people. Instead of everybody claiming, אני בן זבולון, אני בן Benjamin. Yeah, we know about Yehuda. But then with the commandments for the Pesach, we became just that. The commandments for the Pesach produced through our obedience a people before the Most High that He chose. And then right on the tail end of the Pesach, we have the Shabbat for the week of unleavened bread. A separate appointed time. And that's the 15th of Nisan. Even a different day. And then on the 16th of Nisan, the second day of unleavened bread, the day after the first Shabbat, a high Shabbat, a convocation, we have the wave offering. Now this one's kind of particular, a little convoluted. It was originally to be done by the Levitim. Okay, the Levitim. Why? Well, because the sons of Aharon, the Most High, made them a wave offering for all of His people. So all of our life we are continually and constantly a wave offering before Him for all of our people. And so you have a wave offering, you're supposed to do a wave offering. Now if you're Orthodox, you're going to go in all the directions that you're supposed to, and you're going to make yours in the shape, or that's Ashkenazi. Now if you're Sephardic, instead of doing it like this, you're going to make it a little bit more convoluted. So it looks like the wind, bending the branch, coming back, turning in these directions you're supposed to turn it. And then finally you're going to do it here, and you're going to do it here, and you're going to bring it back. Okay, so you got a wave offering, doing a wave offering. And the day of the wave offering on the 16th of Nisan starts day one. Omer. It sounds funny, but that's what we do. When we began the Council of Omer, the Council of Omer begins in the week of unleavened bread. So we, as the unleavened bread, he is supposed to start taking the leaven out of us. The world. Everything vulgar and obscene to him. Everything unclean. Use your own choice of adjectives. Now, consider. When he starts taking things away from you that should not be before him, he can't leave an empty space here, so what's he got to put? Torah. In order for us to do Torah, well, see, we hadn't received Torah yet, but we got the face on.
Okay.
In the week of unleavened bread. Okay? However, we did have oral Torah. That was way before rabbinical Judaism. Now we know this to be true because before we received Torah, Yitro, Moshe's father-in-law, says, "What are you doing?" He says, "Well, all the people gathered around me and I'm settling their disputes and teaching them Torah." Wait a minute, we hadn't gotten Torah from the mount yet. How are you teaching Torah if it hadn't come down from the mount yet? We've had Torah from the beginning. He just gave us more at the mount. Unless Scripture lied to us. Well, Shabbat Shalom. Hag Shavuot. Yes, sir. Okay. That's what I thought. Good enough. So when he starts replacing, putting into that empty space the things he's getting rid of, what does he always put there? How are you supposed to treat your neighbor? How are you supposed to do that? What do you do with your neighbor? What is the commandment? Love your neighbor as you love yourself. Now, what happens if you don't like you? What happens if you really don't like you?
What's not to like?
What happens if you got to punish yourself because nobody else will? How are you going to treat your neighbor then?
Not good. Not good.
That's really predicated on things.
You can't love your neighbor.
That's right. Now this is especially important because our closest neighbor is our mate. Now there's a place in Brit Hadashah that most women just absolutely don't want to hear. Submit to your husband the same way you submit to the Most High. Now, that's not an alibi. That's not a free pass for the husband. Believe me. But it says, submit to your husband the same way you submit to Yah. I gotta tell you, this is more than just a commandment. This is a litmus test. Because how the wife treats her husband is the same way she treats Yah. Not vice versa. The same way that a wife treats her husband and submits to him is the same way she's going to submit to Yah. Now, I'm not bashing Christianity, but it's commonplace among Christians and other modern society whenever they say, I'm going to follow my husband wherever he leads me, as long as it's in the direction I want to go. That's how they're raised. That's how most people in modern society are raised. Well, if mama's not happy, nobody's happy. This is fostered into people. It's there. Women are not given this commandment for them to grovel at their husband's feet. Because if a woman submits to their husband the same way they submit to Yah, they force the Most High's hand on the husband's life. If a woman submits to her husband the same way she does to Yah, that's a major accommodation. Women are not built that way voluntarily. It doesn't work well for them. I've been married over 40 years. My wife still has trouble with this. And she tells me so. Ask me to do something. Don't tell me to do it. Okay. Will you submit to me like you submit to Yah? I am. Okay. Shavuot. I remember you. See, it's not for the benefit of the man that the wife is told to submit to him. By submitting to Yah, what does the woman do? She has to love and trust Yah, to submit to him. So what does that mean she's got to do with the husband? That means she's got to love him and trust him. Even when she don't want to. Even whenever he's disappointed her. But at the same time, because she's loving Yah and trusting him, I trusted you and you gave me this man. Well, maybe you didn't give him to me. Maybe I chose him, but I'm still here, and it's still God's commandment. We got to do something here.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reality of it. So because the woman is the center of the marriage, and she begins her prayer, maybe not to benefit her husband, but to benefit herself, so that she's not sinning against the Most High, the Most High has to be good to his word to answer. And the only way to answer her prayer at that point is to get that husband in right standing. That's his perspective. Now, if her husband is in right standing, would she have a complaint? Yes, she will.
You will?
In Hebrew, it says that the woman, the reason a man was told to govern her, to rule her, and it's not a nice word there, was because the woman always wants to raise herself up. Is that part of the man that she is? The man was made male and female. Well, the woman is, the female part of him is more dominating than the male part. He did that to us. That's the way he made us. So when he killed Adam and he took the back half from him, it wasn't a rib. And then when he was resurrected, he woke up again, and there was the woman, and he went, wow. I couldn't see behind me. Now I can see what it looks like. Oh, yeah. And we've been doing it with women ever since. And we like it. For women to be the center of the marriage. For women to be fitted with the knowledge he gives women. For women to run their house. For women to keep the marriage strong. For women to be the counselor. For women to be the best friend of the husband. And for them to be the lover of the husband. For them to do everything the wife is commanded to do. They had to be made with enough drive, with enough force, with enough personality to get the job done. It wouldn't have worked any other way. No, wives are not meant to be timid and quiet. That's not the way they were designed. The women of Israel are fierce and enduring and accomplishing. There is this lit poetry at the end of Proverbs. And everybody says, that's the way a woman's supposed to be if she's married. I gotta tell you, you've been sold a bad bill of goods. That was the Queen Mother teaching Shlomo what kind of a wife to look for. He went and married 700 women, covenants, not 300 concubines, 1,000 slaves, and he still didn't find one. Well, the problem was he forgot how to search. You don't bury them to choose. You look past the ones that don't work. And it's still a problem today. You don't marry the poor choices, you marry the better choices. He was given wisdom to govern the people. He never asked for any wisdom for himself. I always ask, give me a moment with him, please.
Yeah.
I need to ask him, what happened? Where was your head? That's just about on the silly side of ridiculous. Okay, she wasn't a good choice for me. Why did you marry her? Send her to a more qualified man. What, are you going to put her on a shelf and see her in 3 years? And that's still what we do to each other today. I appear to be rambling a little bit, but it all ties into Shavuot. In the counting of Omer, we have 49 counts. The 50th is a mirage, because on the 50th day, in Greek they call it Pentecost, 50th, Shavuot is no longer an Omer. So we only count the 7 weeks. Feast of Weeks, 49 counts. The 49 counts that bring us from how he starts taking 11 from us, and he starts restructuring us. He's got to use his faculties, and we know them from whenever Moshe was in the cleft of the rock. Benefits of fruit of the Spirit and activity. Every year, the counting of Omer, his restoration of us begins there, so that we can be as appropriate as possible when it gets to Shavuot, because an appointed time is when the men of Israel present themselves to him. You can't come empty-handed, you can't come in ill repair. And if your family's not right, and if your wife is not right, you're still empty-handed. And so if you got to come to him, you do it first in the counting of Omer. Say, please make this right. Okay? And fruit of the Spirit, we got to have that too. We make mistakes in our prayers. We make mistakes in our praise. But he's righteous in his justification to fix that for us. He made us imperfect. We don't live 1,000 years anymore. He first put 120 on us, and we were messing that up. So then he took us down to 80, we started messing that up. He took us back to 60 and 70, and that's still questionable. How long does it take to screw it up? The counting of Omer. We're supposed to fill it up with fruit of the Spirit, with his righteousness, acts of tzedakah, the benefit of it. What's the definition of helping somebody? Somebody tell me something. Look on your phone, get on the internet, check your dictionary. What's the definition of help?
Doing something they can't do for themselves.
You better go again. Did you look that up already? Yes.
Supporting that person.
Give them your time, your talent, your treasure, something like that.
Tell me again.
Supporting that person in every way.
They can't hear you.
Supporting that person in every way, financially, across the board.
That's help.
With all your possessions.
Yes, that's help. Now,
not
what's the
necessarily
definition of benefit?
Assisting.
Get them on their feet,
Yeah.
Yes,
so they can walk
Yes.
themselves.
yes, yes,
If you help a person, you gotta help them again
yes,
and again.
yes,
If you assist the person to, get them on their feet, you might have to walk with them a little bit, wobbly, but then they start walking.
yes. When you help somebody, you don't change them here. You enable them. When you benefit somebody, you assist in changing their thinking so the cycle changes.
Kinda like giving them a fish or teaching them how to fish.
Yeah, same thing, different language, but same thing. But even in teaching them how to fish, you still gotta change the thinking. If not, they're gonna overfish, because they wanna do it all at one time, so they kick back again. The counting of Omer is devoted to preparing us for the appointed time. Loving your neighbor, loving yourself, getting your business in order, getting your affairs in order, making sure nobody else is in disarray. So we can all, in one accord, echad, appear before him in this appointed time. That's why we count the Omer. We've got 7 weeks to make sure nobody's left out, to make sure nobody falls through the cracks as a people. That's why they say when we harvest, we leave the corners of the field. We're not helping, we are benefiting. But when I was driving over in this direction, every time I saw somebody's field where they harvested, they didn't leave any corners of the field. Oh, okay. Can you imagine thinking you're doing great, you want a blessing? And he says, what happened to the corners of your field for the last 25 years?
But isn't that also with every business? It's not just agriculture?
That's true.
The extra things that we have,
There's no extra.
well,
It's how we allocate.
okay. The things that, rather than going over things twice, leftovers, isn't that the corners of the field?
Well, he
It's on
said,
purpose.
leave the
It's on
corners of the
purpose.
field.
Left
We
over.
can't consider them left over. They're purposely left.
Purposely left over, yeah, purposely put aside.
And they're left like that so that they can leave and nobody suffers the indignity of having to be seen picking up the edges of the field.
Out the middle.
We have to get some soup line or some
Yes,
humiliating,
because they have to come out and gather.
there's a dignity in that.
Yes.
Any of the sheaves that drop when you're harvesting, you're not allowed to pick them up. You make sure you drop plenty.
Actually, 1 in 10. This is what the counting of Omer is about before Shavuot.
That's what Ruth was doing.
Yes, that's exactly what she was doing. Now I have a question. I have a question.
An answer, it's
Hey, I like that. I like that. Do you know how good it is when you can see one of the new generation doing well in aspiring to that position as the next generation and able to contain it and use it and move forward? How awe-inspiring is that? To know that the Most High's trust is being fulfilled. Yeah, that's what I see. That's what I see. That's what I see. Nothing less. If you've never been to a maternity ward, you're missing something. You go up to where all these newborns and neonates are at, and you look in the glass. And if you'll open your eyes to see the messengers that are there with each one, and you watch those messengers as they watch His Spirit being sent from on high to touch and comfort and warm the fruits of the Spirit, before anybody ever teaches them they shouldn't be doing it and having it. Before they're really comforted by their mother, they're comforted by Him. It's a beautiful thing to behold. It's actually better than a Rembrandt. And he's pretty good. Consider every moment that the Most High spends in nurturing His gift of life in each person. The fruit of the Spirit. He sent the Anointed One to us because we couldn't get it right any other way. Our parents had to be taken out again in Eden because they didn't have any experience. They didn't know how to repent. They didn't know how to seek forgiveness. They couldn't be allowed to stay there in an unrepentant state, unforgiven. We've been doing this stuff for a long time like this. Open your hand and look at it. You believe you're seeing an empty hand, but it's like a vessel. When your hand is like this, it's always ready for what God's going to do with it. You haven't wrapped your hand around anything for yourself. It's here. When He said, lift, set apart hands up to praise, they're meant to be empty so that He can fill them, so that He can use them. That's why they're called the works of our hands. His works, our hands. No matter what you want to do for Him, it's going to be insufficient. He never finds what we do of ourselves sufficient or acceptable. It's Him working through us, His works, that He finds acceptable. So when it's our hands are working, it's got to be His work through us in our hand, so that we represent Him. People can see Him in us and see Him through us, and whatever we build as we progress, they see Him in the building blocks of our life. That's what we get in Shavuot. We get that high in Shavuot. And that prepares us for Sukkot. And we got to go through a whole new planting and harvesting. And more atonement before He even wants us to get to Sukkot. Are we having fun yet? Did everybody have mushrooms this morning to eat? You ever seen a mushroom on the earth? They're the nicest company. They don't move, they don't complain, they don't make a sound. Not perceptibly to most people. They don't resent you, they don't argue with you. They don't even give you any feedback. They don't have an opinion. You can't be a mushroom with the Most High. You can't be a mushroom with each other. It doesn't work. We depend on each other whether we want to or not. Cubby said that we become interdependent. And everybody has got to a point, yeah, we're interdependent. Yeah, I don't go out and make the gas, I buy it from the station. Yeah, I don't go out and farm the land anymore, I buy it from a grocery store. Yeah, and even then, I do less than that, I go to a restaurant, and I leave the guy a tip and I walk away, I don't have to wash the dishes. That's not interdependency. If he's the farmer and I am the blacksmith, then we're going to negotiate with each other with our goods and the products of our hands, the works of our hands, and we're going to do an exchange and bartering so that the works that the Most High has worked through each of us is exchanged so we can experience Yahweh's works through each other's hands continually. That's interdependence. With us continually having a dependence on the Most High.
One hand washes the other.
And it's always Him. I'm sure all of you remember the scripture. When they say that Messiah's over there, don't go over there. When they say Messiah's over there, don't go over there. When they say Messiah's over there, don't go over there either. How are you going to find Messiah? Very misunderstood. Mashiach. It literally means anointed. Messiah means anointed. Have you ever felt the Most High's presence, revealed presence so strongly, you know it's there, and you're speaking because of it, and you're acting because of it? Well, you're a Mashiach. So what he's really saying is, if you hear of an anointed one over there, or you hear of an anointed one over here, or you hear of an anointed one over here, unless I send you there and I have purpose there for you, don't go there. I've got somebody already there. If I don't send you over here, this anointed one, don't go there. I got that covered. You go where I want you because you're one of my anointed ones, and I got work for you too. That's what that means. We learn this in Shavuot. We find where the need is, where His purposes can be served. And then the person best suited for that, we send him with his hand empty until he gets involved in the work of the Most High, until the works of his hands are fulfilled. Shavuot, they call it Feast of Weeks. The only reason we call it a feast is because we're commanded to eat and break bread together on every appointed time. We break bread with each other every time because in breaking bread we renew our covenants in between each other. If we didn't renew covenants, we wouldn't have to eat that bread. And don't get me wrong, challah is pretty good. And I got some great recipes of challah. Okay? But I got to tell you, the showbread from the Mishkan, that when they took it to the temple, showbread is about 12 feet long. The loaves are about that wide. And there's 12 of them up and down in the racks. Okay? There was enough there to sustain David and his men when they ate it. So I don't expect anybody to bake the challah like they do the showbread and give it to one person. There's not enough eating on one Shabbat to do that. Two names for the Mishkan: tabernacle and tent of meeting. If you look at every place in Torah where it says tabernacle, it's talking about the inside of the tabernacle. Every place where it mentions tent of meeting is talking about the outside entrance on the outside. So we're not talking about anything that most people think about. We've got two perspectives going here. The tabernacle is where He comes down and He speaks to the sons of Aharon and Moshe. And the tent of meeting is where He receives the people. It said the people always gather at the entrance to the tent of meeting. When it says the people gather at their entrance, it's never called the Mishkan, the tabernacle. They never go inside. Why? Don't they want to explore? Don't they want to tour?
They're terrified.
Why?
They're scared.
Why?
Because there's thunderbolts and lightning. Very, very frightening.
The very presence of his name. They step inside, they're not to the bloodline. They don't get any farther, they're not there anymore. Oops. Plenty of reasons not to go past it. Their perception of the tabernacle was purely tent of meeting. They could never see it as Mishkan. And all of the answers they got was right there at the entrance. Of course, the entrance readily played out to be about the size of a football field in front of it to accommodate all the people coming with their offerings, their slaughterings. It's really interesting. Who commanded the temple to be built? Who commanded the temple to be built?
David.
Yahweh, no, he did not.
David.
No,
No, he did not.
it's just the desire of King David.
Huh?
It's just the desire of King David.
No,
No.
no. David prayed and said, "It's not right for me to live in such splendor while you're out there in canvas and wood. I want you to have something better." Because David was what? The apple of his eye. In all of his perfections, yet the apple of his eye. But he said, no, you can't build the temple out of your pleasure because you are a man of war. But your son can, Shlomo. He allowed it to be built. It was never commanded to be built. The Mishkan was the only one that was ever commanded to be by the Most High. And what's really interesting, since we stuck with the temples, nobody among our people has ever attempted to erect the Mishkan again. We still have it someplace, so they say. But as they won't attempt to erect it again, we could have had it any time. But nobody's ever wanted to raise the Mishkan up again.
They're scared.
Well, they cited a few reasons, but that's probably top of the list. Now, in the first temple, we still had Yah's presence. In the second temple, we did not. In the first temple, the wood of the altars never burned. In the second temple, they did. In the Mishkan, the wood never burned. The only thing that ever burned on the altars in the Mishkan was the wood that they added to it. But the wood for the altar itself didn't burn. Gee whiz. They spent 40 years in the wilderness. Their sandals never wore out. Their clothes never wore out. They didn't have to worry about deodorant. They stayed healthy. If he can do that for 40 years and he can feed you with manna, why is that a big deal? Your Moshe can stand up with a staff and all of a sudden, go ahead and walk, it's dry land. And it's going to stay dry all the time you guys are walking. Okay, so the wood don't burn. Moshe saw a bush burn and the wood bush didn't get burned up in the ashes. Okay, that's Yahweh. If he wants to do that, he can do that. The fire is his. It's part of him. Okay. But even now, we're going to erect another temple soon. Very soon, actually. And still, they don't want to put the Mishkan on. But Yah is wise in his wisdom. all the prophecy about the abomination, the beast, and the false prophet, to make the temple unclean. Guess what? He didn't order the temple. We did. So what's the beast and the false prophet going to trample on? What we ordered. What the Most High commanded to be erected is not going to be made unclean. I like everybody's perceptions at different times. It's not just for a laugh. It's to see deep within somebody's heart and soul and to know how much you need to pray for them and pray with them, even without their knowledge or permission. There's a woman I knew one time several years ago. Said, "Can I pray with you?" She looked at me. "I don't want you to pray about anything." Okay. "Well, can I pray for you?" "No." Okay. "Well, I'm going to pray anyway." "Don't you dare." I did it anyway. Sometimes you can hear things that are being taught, and you haven't heard them before. And your first, as they say, knee-jerk response, your gut reaction, is to throw it out. But what's that old saying they got in English? Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Got to be careful about that. Never heard that before? No? We used to have these big old tubs on the back porches where, as kids, we got our baths, and even the little ones. And so when you finish the bath, after 3 or 4 times getting used, they're gonna throw it out the back. The tub, not the tub, just the water. They want to make sure you check it first, and make sure there's nobody in it, and throw out the bath water. Scripture's the same way. I used to ask a lot of questions when I would teach. And all the questions I would ask could be found in Scripture. I asked a group one time, "Who's the Queen of Heaven? What's her job?" "Queen of Heaven? We have a king and we don't have a queen." That's not entirely correct. The Scripture talks about a Queen of Heaven. And let me ask you one of his all-time favorites now. Okay? And everybody that knows, don't say a word. Where did God come from? Where did God come from?
I thought he always was.
Everybody that knows is supposed to be quiet. Did you get the memo? Anybody want to know that don't know? You know where God came from? Would you like to know? You want to read it for yourself? I'm the prophet Habakkuk. Yes. If you can find them outside the Bible, you can take me with you. I want to talk to him too. Come back. Tell me when you're there. Oh. Okay, should I go eat?
You could.
Habakkuk. In Protestantism, they call him a little prophet. He wasn't a pygmy. He wasn't a dwarf.
Not to his face.
Right there. You get to Habakkuk? Go to chapter 3. You get to chapter 3? Go to verse 3. So read the words. Back to 3, verse 3. Read the words.
Allowed? I'm gonna pronounce them all wrong.
I don't care. When I first learned to speak English, I pronounced everything wrong.
This one, the law comes from Timon.
This is basically your mother could look. You think you really learned the kids?
God comes from the Taman and the Holy One from Mount Torah.
God came from where?
I don't know.
What's it say? What's it say?
I don't know what that means.
Well, what does it say?
Come on. Maybe.
God came from Taman. It's the only place in Scripture where it gives a description of where he came from. You know, most people just say, oh, wow, look at there, but you're actually asking a good question. Now, historically speaking, Taman was a metropolitan city of its day and age, full of commerce. But the Hebrew definition of Taman is at the right.
Righteousness.
The actual definition of Taman is at the right. At the right. So where did he come from?
Right.
From the right. And who sits at the right? He didn't have that as a name yet. Uh-huh.
What was the name? Wait.
Memra, the living word. Memra. Aramaic.
How do we spell that?
It would be romanization, M-E-M-R-A. What do you think of that?
So Yeshua's name was given to him at birth or a gestation or something, but before that,
Before his incarnation as a man,
Before
he
his
didn't have the name Yeshua.
uh-huh.
He was the living word. Every place that you see in Torah the prophets where it says, he's the Most High spoke, you say, the word came forth. That word is what we're talking about. Every time it says, Yahweh spoke, Elohim spoke, that speaking is that power, that activity. Everything that the Father wanted done, the Word actually accomplished.
So does it mean that, so it says that Yahweh came from the right. Is that the word?
The name, Yod-Heh-Wahe.
Yahweh came from the word.
Yes. Well, we have in John 17, where it says, when Yeshua prayed to the Father, I've kept him by the power of your name, the name that you gave me. So we see that the Father shared his name, gave his name to Yeshua. Whenever Yeshua did this, Revelation says the foundation of the world, right there at the beginning of things. So we had to do it twice. Spiritually, physically, materially. Wouldn't you hate to have to go through that twice? Now there's about 600 or 700 little gems like that I used to tease students about. That's only one of them.
Sounds fun. How about another one?
Like one of those? Okay. There were 4 rivers that ran through Gan Eden. We can all find the names of them. And even today, we can find the location of at least 3 almost right off the top. The question is, where was the head of these rivers?
What's wrong?
Say again?
In the garden.
You better go back and read it again.
If I recall correctly, it says it came
I'm
from
hoping
the
you can recall correctly.
Yeah, it came from the garden. Right? Yeah, I never checked. Shall I read?
Yes.
Huh? Technically, what I said is incorrect.
Okay. Gonna qualify that, all right.
Where is it? Bereshit, chapter 2, verse 10. And a single river, I'm guessing, says river, went out of Eden to water the garden.
Oh,
And from there it was parted and became 4 heads.
I see. So where is the beginning of those 4 rivers?
At the end of the single river?
But Eden is not Gan Eden.
Yeah, just Eden.
I don't get it.
Eden is a Hebrew word to describe the earth in its totality, planet. Gan Eden is Gan meaning garden, garden of Eden, garden of the earth. Gan Eden is also colloquially used to describe paradise.
Orchard.
And it's interesting how our spiritual eyes see. When Yeshua healed a man who was born blind, and he spit on the ground, and he put that spittle on the man's eyes. I'm sure everybody would enjoy experiencing that. And he said, "What do you see?" "Oh, I see men as trees walking." "Oh, let's call CNN." "I see men as trees walking." "Oh, let's turn back the cable a little bit here. Let's turn back the channel." Do you realize at one time there were 3 TV channels? NBC, CBS, and ABC? And we thought that was great. You can eat freely of every tree in the garden except this one. "I see men as trees walking." You can eat freely of every tree except this one. "I see men as trees walking." Is there any relationship there? Maybe.
I gotta go.
Oh, by Job, she's got it.
I don't think it was.
So when he did it again, and the guy opened his eyes, he goes, "Oh, I can see everybody." He was no longer looking from inward.
Oh, wow. So real.
Because from the Hebrew, when he said, "I see men as trees walking," without the Tiberian vowel point system we use in Hebrew today, okay, it's the exact same root.
Wow.
Now I have a question. You asked for it.
Bring it.
When the Master returns, does he come back as Yeshua HaMashiach? Is it truly a second return? Is it a second return? A second return? Yes, no?
I think the messenger said it's just gonna be the same way that he went up, he'll come down. I don't remember the number two. I remember the method.
Well, that's true, it was a trick question. So when he comes back, will he come back as a suffering broken?
No.
No?
No.
Is he coming back as the anointed one?
No.
Yes.
No.
King.
He's coming back as what?
King.
Malach. The king of what?
The earth.
No.
No.
King of Kings.
Say it again.
King of Kings.
I can't hear you.
I said King of Kings.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I like it.
Is that king of all kings?
Yes.
Of all time?
Yes.
Okay.
Now it says that when he
Yes.
comes back, we're supposed to meet him in the air, one way or the other, however he facilitates that. Yes?
Right.
And then where are we going once we meet him in the air?
Wedding supper of God.
I thought we were
Now we come to the
Oh, I
earth.
got all kinds of answers.
Tell me again?
We return with him.
No, we don't go to Jerusalem.
No, I thought we.
He's not going to Jerusalem.
We go with him.
His bus tickets don't go that far. He only makes it to the Mount of Olives.
Right.
It says that his toes touch down on the Mount of Olives. His toes, actually, his feet, maybe, depending on the translation. Okay. But what he does, he causes things to happen. What happens to the Mount of Olives? So where are we?
With
If
him.
we're meeting him in the air, where are we?
Right behind him.
We're with him forever.
What happens to us when it splits? We gotta get our footing?
We're with him. We're with him.
No, we are already.
He's not gonna fall.
So what happens after that? Well, you look at there, it's better than the Grand Canyon, right? Did you bring your camera? You got your phone? Hey, this might not be around for a while. We need to get a picture of this. Come on, you stand over here. Come on, get with me. Don't step too far back.
Doesn't a river come out of that?
Goes both ways.
Doesn't a river come out of that?
What kind of river?
Water, I don't know.
Living water.
A living water.
Living
You
water.
sure it says that?
I remember that.
You might want to go back and look at that part again.
The water, yeah.
It's a river,
And it flows.
for sure, and you're right, it flows. You might want to go back and look at that again. Now, Yeshua is not coming back as Mashiach. He's coming back as Hamalek. So once he gets here, what's he going to do?
Conquer.
Rule.
He already did that.
Well, there's still a battle, isn't there? There's a big battle.
He said it was finished when he did this.
Yeah, but what about the battle?
Okay. Let me help you a little bit on this. You remember when Yeshua was walking and he came upon this man, and all these things that were within him, they all jumped out and said, "Oh, Yeshua, son of Elohim, why are you here before your time? Have you come here to torture us, torment us?" They didn't argue with him. They didn't set up a battle camp. They didn't try to engage against him. They were tormented in his presence. And they said, "Please, let us go into the pigs." You know, they're unclean anyway, right? And he says, "Go." They pleaded. They begged, "Please, let us go." They didn't offer negotiation. There was no rhetoric. There was no debate. "Please, let us go." And they went into the pigs, and then they caused the pigs to do what? They were attempting to escape him. What kind of battle do you think it's going to be when he's here as king?
Bloodbath.
Yeah.
Supper of Yahweh.
Who's going to stand against him?
No one.
Who's going to want to?
No one.
And the ones that are foolish enough to think they can, he's going to turn them against each other.
That's what he did.
Now the question is, when does he start ruling? 1,000-year Shabbat.
Feast of Trumpets.
Yeah. What's the Feast of Trumpets? What appointed time is that?
First to the seventh month.
Yom Teruah. You have to be in the Feast of Trumpets.
Never calls it a feast, it's called Yom Teruah.
Day of Trumpets.
The sound.
But I like what it sounds like. He should have put it in like that.
Huh?
We might want to send him a memo, you know? A lot of people call it Feast of Trumpets. I mean, they call every point in time a feast. Why not call that one too? Now, Yom Teruah. How do we know that's when he's coming back? Well, you asked, you told me that's when he's gonna start ruling.
This is the day that no one knows the day or the hour.
That's not entirely correct. Let me reshape that for you a little bit. We know the day. We just don't know which year that day is gonna be.
Right.
Yeah.
We know the day. And we even know the hour. We just don't know which year that day is gonna come to pass. And right now, we got a choice of about between 7 and 10 year period of time.
But don't they call the feast of the Yom Teruah the day that no one knows the day or the hour? In Israel, they say that as the day.
Yes, because of the pinpoint to be held to it.
What's Yom Teruah?
What is Yom Torah? It's the first of the 10 high holy days. By our tradition, it's the day heaven's gates are open. The 10 days of awe, the days of repentance prior to Yom Torah. Yom Teruah, the day of the sound, the day of the blast, the day of the resonance, the day of the vibration. Everybody's attempts to reconcile that word in English. It has no English equivalent.
So the King James says that the last trump.
That word trump there, literally translated as transaction. But we don't know what kind of transaction that is. It could be because we have covenant with one another. That would be a transaction. Because we've given our word on something. We've adjudicated one another. But we don't yet know, it hasn't unfolded to us, what that last transaction actually is. Now, within a remnant of believers in Israel, they commonly believe it will be when the last person that the Most High is waiting for comes to Yeshua and comes to be a believer. That in and of itself is a transaction. Every time we come to Him and we become a believer and we receive Him, that is a transaction.
Restoration of covenant.
Always. But we don't have enough didactic evidence in Scripture to postulate it as a real premise.
So at that time, is that when the times of the Gentiles end?
Is fulfilled.
Is fulfilled, yes, that's good.
I couldn't say that for sure,
Okay,
and I don't know that I'm qualified to.
okay.
What's the definition of a Gentile? I'm not a prophet.
Yeah, it was
What's the definition of a Gentile?
non-Jew.
Non-believers.
A lost.
Yeah, that's what we call Gentiles.
What?
But what's the definition of them?
Member of the nations.
One
Lost
outside
brother.
of Torah.
Huh?
One outside of Torah.
That's a true statement. You're getting a lot closer, you're doing good.
Torahlessness.
That's right.
Oh, what?
Lawlessness.
Torahlessness.
Torahlessness, that's the actual word.
Uh,
Huh.
How did the Gentiles get to be without Torah like that? Well, historically, way back steeped in our traditions and customs, a Gentile was one who had either lost or forgotten or abandoned Torah. That started happening when we were scattered. So when somebody decides, I want to discover my roots. You know, I knew Hector for about 5 years before I knew what a Hebrew root was. I didn't know anything about what they were doing there. Now, please understand, every group, every assembly that gets started has a purpose. Else he wouldn't let it happen. What happens after they get started is between them and the Most High. But we have to give spiritual support and prayer to each and every one. We are not the judge. You don't want to be the judge. And since we're not the judge, we don't do the judgments. So it's our place to pray for them and praise for them and rejoice for them. And whatever they're not doing right, we ask them to put that there. Whatever they're doing wrong, we ask them to change it and make it right. That way we uplift our family members. Instead of going around with your checklist, nope, you're not doing that right. Nope, you missed that one. Nope, nope, we're not grading on a curve here. Nope, nope. Really?
So we benefit from.
Yes. Absolutely.
Edify one another, honor one another.
That's right.
Keep those vessels honorable.
That's right.
We are shomer for each other, just like we are shomer for an appointed time. We guard one another. And when we do stumble, we're imperfect, we know it, we do it again. The lesson of the ants, what are we always doing? We're either building or rebuilding. Building and rebuilding. When it rains out of an ant hill, oh, they're all gone now. You come out the next day, what do you see? Oh, look at there. They've been busy. That's our business. We are supposed to be constantly in a state of building and rebuilding. You finish the first floor, you rebuild again and make it a second floor. You rebuild again, you make it a third floor. You rebuild again, you start over here on the side. We're continually building the edifices of the Most High within each other. When we say shalom to one another, Shin, Lamed, Mem. Can you say that? Shin, Lamed, Mem. Or you can say Shin, Lamed, Mem. Or you can say Shin, Lamed, and a Mem. Okay? Shem, Lamed, Mem. Shem, Lamed, Mem. That's shalom. Okay? When we speak shalom to one another, through the power of those three letters grouped together to make that word, by our spoken word, because of his breath and his image of goodness, by speaking that to another, we start the destruction of the edifices of the adversary in our life by saying shalom. Such a simple tool. Amazing, huh? And believe me. Oh, is that a signal? Okay.
Well, why does it say in the Webster's dictionary that the definition of Gentile is not a Jew? Like,
That's a modern definition.
well, you have the original branches and you have the grafted in. They're two different. They're antagonistic towards one another, but they're different.
70% of the Spanish people in South America are Sephardic Jews that have no record of how they became that way. We call them Gentiles today because they're not Torah observant. Yet and still, we can prove that they have roots there just by the pastries that they make and the way they do their prayers and a few other things. Okay? I can show you one of the islands below the main island of the Philippines with the Filipino people, and you will find that they keep the appointed times a little bit differently than we do, but they keep them. The Bora Indians. Okay? They're a fierce people.
How can you have anti-Semitism if you don't have a different class? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's bad, really bad, to be like that.
To be anti-Semitic?
Yes, absolutely.
I would agree with your abstractness there. Okay? But to be able to turn something good or bad, be careful with that. All goodness comes from the Most High, but that doesn't make things bad. However, it's another opportunity for prayer. Okay? Most people today that are anti-Semitic, it's a conditioned thing that they've learned. It's something that they were reared with. They may not actually know why they're anti-Semitic. Okay? Mel Gibson produced a movie that was largely, hugely successful, and it was all in Aramaic. Does anybody remember what that was?
Yes.
It was called The Passion. The Passion was developed by the Catholic Church back into the 4th and the 8th century. It was done on stages, and it was done before every Pesach, and it was meant to stir people up against the Jewish people. If you really look close at the Passion, you'll find that the Pharisees and the Jews were covered, and you could see all of the body language to make them the villains. But then the righteous, their robes were different. So Mel Gibson, being a good Catholic boy, he produced the Passion the exact same way the Catholic Church had always done it. And when the Passion was really popular, it was a rise in anti-Semitism again. So while The Passion was an extremely entertaining movie, and the fellow who played Mashiach would accept no money for it, okay, The Passion is still an anti-Semitic product.
That's what I'm saying. You have two people groups there.
Yes,
Yes.
but both of them need prayer. Fruit of the Spirit.
But would it be true to say that even the anti-Semites came from the Garden of Eden, were from
Oh, yeah.
Noah?
All of us came from the same place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So really, if you go back, even genetically, if they went back beyond their anti-Semitism, they'd bump right into Noah again.
Absolutely.
The interesting thing about that movie though is, for my wife and I, that's where we came in, because that's where I heard Mashiach's name.
Yeshua,
Yep.
Yeshua, the Aramaic.
Yeah.
That was me too, it was when I said, wait a minute, what's this Aramaic? I never heard that before, I always thought it was Greek.
Aramaic is beautiful.
But I knew that Yeshua did not equate to Jesus. I mean, and I'm not a linguist, I don't study linguistics, but I just simply knew that somehow that didn't fit.
Well, it's just like
That's actually how
Hitler
I came into everything.
benefited the state of Israel beautifully by causing a huge persecution, stirring up the whole world.
Okay. Actually, it was planned out.
Yahweh, isn't it all the bad comes from Yahweh too?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And, well, he put it in some people's hearts, because the Jesuits, I have copies of their meetings, they planned from 40 years, 50 years before then, for World War I, World War II, and World War III. And everything's still going according to their plans. The Catholic Church sponsored Hitler, gave him their blessing and permission to persecute the Jews. Hitler was a Jew. His mother was a Jew.
That's crazy.
He met the Pope.
Yeah, well, okay. I almost had the opportunity to meet a Pope one time. By the time I finished laughing, they'd already taken the invitation away. It's an interesting thing about a pontiff. They begin to believe that stuff. Now, we got down yet?
I think so.
Yes.
No, I was just thinking for a second.
Well, it's affordable. You can do that.
Okay, this might be a stupid question, but if the.
Oh, no.
The 10 tribes are going back and they mixed with the Assyrians, then are they considered Gentiles?
By us, yeah.
By you, by Judah, by the house